Here.
Trustee Carey,
Here.
Trustee Chaplin,
Here.
Trustee Farahi,
Here.
Trustee Gianoli. Here. Trustee Jay.
Present.
Trustee Rose.
Present.
Oh, I thought she was coming in. Chair Safraza.
Here.
And Trustee Sperber.
Here.
Okay. Our next item will be public comment. Are there any members of the public who would wish to speak at this time? We have one person in the chat room. I wasn't sure if we had public comment.
No, that's me.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on, and we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. There are some changes, and maybe our attorney can help me out here. We're going to pull the item, which is 2010-68. I'm sorry, not 20-68. Is that correct? Yes, I'm sorry, Ann. 20-10-68, which is the approval of the fire operating agreement between the City of Reno and RTAA. And I know we've been waiting for this. My understanding is that this is going to come back to us. There's just some small, I think, tweaks in the language. So this will be coming back to the board, I think, at the next board meeting. So that one's going to be pulled. And Mr. Vice Chair, on item number 9.1, which is the employee medical insurance coverage, I will need to make a disclosure on that item and also a recusal. So for that portion, we just need you to take over the meeting. So other than that, are there any modifications or changes to the agenda before it's approved?
Richard J. moved to accept the agenda with the proposed changes.
Okay, we have a motion from Trustee Jay and a second from
Trustee Gianoli.
Trustee Gianoli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And moving on to approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion for approval of the minutes for September 10th?
Gianoli moves to approve the minutes.
Okay, so Trustee Gianoli is moving to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Trustee J. moved to second.
Trustee J, all right. We have a second from Trustee J. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and the next item, we've changed things up a little bit here, and we're going to now hear from our CEO to give a report. So Darren, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Safraza and members of the board. Thank you for accommodating me. I asked the Chair and Vice Chair if I could go a little earlier in these meetings to set the stage a little bit for what the agenda has. And so I am appreciative of that. And another thing I would like to add is one of the most important things to me as the CEO of the organization is our safety program and employee safety in everything that we do, both here at work and at home. And so with that in mind, I've asked Ted Ohm, one of our project managers. Ted is kind of our jack of all trades. He's a building inspector, a safety professional, does fire inspections. And Ted is going to start doing a monthly safety message for us. Just so you know, he also shares this out at our some of our tenant meetings with the airlines and other airport tenants, and it's just a great, each month he'll have a message for us. So Ted, would you please give our monthly safety message?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Madam Chair, trustees, good morning. So we're right in the middle of National Fire Prevention Week, and safety in the kitchen is the theme for this year. Cooking is the biggest cause of fires and injuries in the homes. Unattended cooking is the leading factor. So when you're cooking, please stay in the kitchen. Also, create a 3-foot kid-free zone around your stove. Also, your barbecues as well. Right now, it's also starting to get colder. If anybody uses space heaters in individual rooms, make sure that they have a tip-over switch so that if inadvertently that heater gets tipped over, it automatically shuts off. We have several little space heaters within the organization, and we provide those, and they have that switch in them. Also, it's important to have your furnace and your fireplace, if you have one, cleaned and inspected by a professional before using them this winter. And my big thing is test your smoke detectors. So come November 1, we're going to set our clocks back, and that's always a good reminder when to change the battery in your smoke detector. Take the time, check the date on the back of the detector also. If it's more than 10 years old, install a new one. A new battery operated smoke detector is about $5 at the big box hardware stores. If you have a smoke detector that's maybe really high, if you have high ceilings in your house, and it's kind of a pain to get to, think of installing a 10-year sealed battery smoke detector. They cost about $15 in the hardware stores. And those are my safety tips for this month. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ted, so much for the safety message. Okay, so you all have my monthly CEO report with all the various details in there. I won't go into all of that, but if you have any questions, please let me know. I do have a few other highlights I'd like to share with the board this morning. First, I want to acknowledge what happened midway through our September board meeting in this room and throughout the terminal, where we had a security incident and we had to evacuate all pre-security areas. That was an event, to my knowledge, that hadn't occurred in more than 20 years, and I just want to express my personal appreciation to our police and security forces for what was a very calm and a methodical approach to evacuating a terminal building. And thank you. And you know, we have a plan for this, and we followed the plan, we executed the plan, and that's why you have that, and that's why you train to it. And I just saw a lot of really good things happening at that time. I also want to thank Police Chief Kevin Field and Police Captain Mark Jongsma, who were both present at the command center in leadership roles, executing our plan, working with our mutual aid responders, and directing our teams in the field as to where to evacuate passengers to. Also want to thank a lot of airport authority employees who were helping passengers that had various situations, and whether they were stranded or needed assistance or were just confused. A lot of great examples of airport employees and our tenant employees, whether it's TSA or airlines, just helping people out, because those are stressful situations. You don't expect to encounter that when you're at an airport, and everybody kept a very calm head, and I'm just really appreciative of how that went. Not something you ever want to have to do, but the plan was triggered for very good reasons. We did exactly what we were supposed to do, so I just want to acknowledge that. The past month we have talked a lot about air service. There have been a lot of air service successes, and I just want to highlight a few. I know you're aware of these to a certain degree, but our new Alaska service to Palm Springs 5 times a week, which starts December 17th, that was something that Alaska came to us. It was their idea. They had done their research. They approached the Regional Air Service Corporation and our team. And, you know, this was something they wanted to do, but they couldn't do it without the support of RSCVA and Jennifer Cunningham, who was really instrumental in her leadership in bringing the necessary funds to the table, along with RASC, to secure that air service. It's seasonal. Their bookings are already doing really well for that December launch. And so that is the sort of example where we're hoping to start seasonal and build something like that into sustained air service over the full year. And this is how you get it started with an airline like that. Also off to a really great start is our JSX service to Burbank, which launched on September 24th with 5-time weekly service to Burbank. That flight is already doing really well. We just got an update a few days ago. The bookings are good. We're getting more than we expected in terms of traffic on that route already, both directions. They're very happy. According to JSX, this is the best route launch they've had. So that's exactly what you want to hear. We put a lot of effort into it. RASC put a tremendous amount of effort into this. I want to also thank Trustee Farahi for his leadership with the JSX service. It's been truly a team effort, and this is how you want it to start, and hopefully we will sustain that over time. and continue to grow with JSX into their route network. So also a special thank you to Stellar Aviation for their support of JSX. They're doing a great job in handling a new type of service, the hop on, hop off that doesn't come through the terminal building. It's new, it's unique, and it's off to a great start. Summer airfield construction has been a lot of construction this summer. As you all know, at times we had 2 of our 3 runways out of service for major rehabilitation, reconstruction. I'm pleased to report that next week we will get the 3rd and final runway back online. We'll have a fully functioning airfield again. It's been a really successful summer season. A lot of hard work by our construction partners and our construction teams out there working in challenging spaces, but also getting a lot of great runway rehabilitation done. We have one more busy summer of runway rehab work next year. And then we are going to be in a really great place with our runways being largely reconstructed and in good shape for many, many years, which is a great message for our airline and tenant partners who are disrupted when we take runways down. But it happens at every airport, so we're almost through that phase. Today's agenda has several public safety agenda items that I'm excited to see coming to the finish line. Fire Chief Jeff Chongate will walk us through a couple of those. He's here today, and this week he's also been leading our annual live burn training for all of our firefighters, which is really important training. And then at the end of the meeting, I'll give you my monthly public safety update to talk about the other things I'm working on as it relates to public safety. Madam Chair, that completes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. We really appreciate everything you're doing. And I just want to echo what you said about our public safety personnel and all personnel at the airport, and Vice Chairman Carey, since I wasn't present at the last meeting, just want to thank everybody for their leadership during the incident. And also I did want to thank the RSCBA, Jennifer Cunningham in particular, for helping with that flight for Palm Springs. That's a big deal for the region, and also Trustee Farahi for the Jet SuiteX flights to Burbank. I mean, I think that shows our passion here as Board of Trustees. As you know, Jet SuiteX is pulling out of the market, and I just can't understate and want to thank Trustee Farahi for everything, and RAS for helping bring that back in and having that service to Burbank. So thank you very much.
And if I may, Chair Sferrazza, thank you, but I did very little of the work. Credit really goes to staff and to Tina. You know, we just helped take whatever roadblocks out of the way that we could. So credit to staff, and you have our full support. Staff, however we can help them continue to grow. We are here. I've been hearing directly from JSX as well, and from multiple staff members at the airport as to how well the flight is doing. So again, however we can help to continue to expand that service, it really is a perfect size for us and a perfect product type for us, and glad to see that our thesis is working.
At this time, we're going to move on to item 6, which is board comments and liaison reports. I put this on. Here's an agenda item up front for any board members who want to give any updates on anything pertaining to the airport, or just updates in general. So I'll go ahead and open the floor to the Board of Trustees. Are there any updates out there? I just want to give one, going back to Darren, the ARF truck, which is very exciting news. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit, Darren? And I know we have our structure truck on the agenda later today, woohoo. But just wanted to go back to Darren on the ARF truck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as I sent, I think in a brief note last week, we got some long-awaited good news from the Federal Aviation Administration regarding our request for a replacement aircraft rescue and firefighting apparatus vehicle. We have a very old vehicle sitting in the fire station over there, Fire 2, that FAA had some concerns around what we were requesting. They have very specific requirements in terms of water and chemicals, and we are technically over capacity according to them. And the common sense part of a person is like, how can you ever have enough? But they have specific standards for reasons. So we had to spend quite a few months negotiating, if you will, with the airport's district office. And then I was pleased to receive a call from the airport's district manager late last week that they had approved that. So we will be moving forward procuring that aircraft fire and rescue firefighting vehicle that'll be funded through our passenger facility charges. We have some administrative work to do in that regard, and then ultimately coming back to this board for approval. But that is really great news. It's going to be a much-needed piece of frontline firefighting equipment that will be state-of-the-art, and I know will be well received by our firefighters and all the airfield tenants and airlines that are supported by it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Item 7, which is awards, recognitions, and items of special interest.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I will take the first one here. It's a unique one and a special one, and so thank you for your indulgence this morning. As you well know, we put on an art show, an employee art show, every year. And even during a pandemic, we did not want to lose that momentum that we have. We believe the art show shows the traveling public more about our community and more about the people behind the badges in the airport. What was unique about this year was obviously it was done in a pandemic, so we couldn't do the awards ceremony and reception that we typically do. So we had to get creative, and what we've been doing is going around the airport and surprising the winners, whether they're with the TSA or the airlines, filming that moment, and then we're going to be putting it on social media. For the first time this year, we had a trustee enter the art show. Trustee Carey, congratulations. You were also one of the winners. I do want to point out that it is blind judging, as they call it. There's no nameplates that are on the art, and our judges were Amanda Horn from the Nevada Museum of Art, Tracy Oliver from Sierra Arts, and Vivia Zavataro from the Lilly Museum. And so with 140 pieces, we had winners ranging from children's categories to amateurs to professional. And we appreciate Trustee Carey. The art that he created was a smiley face. I can't really describe it. Trustee, maybe you want to, but in a time of a pandemic, a little joy and a little smile at this time is a wonderful thing. So later today, all of our winners will be on social media, and the last one we've approached is Trustee Carey. So congratulations, and thank you for participating in the art show.
And it's called Have a Great Day, and it has brought a smile to so many people's faces, including the judges. They just kept going back to it. So thank you so much for participating, and here you go. And since this is our last presentation, you're the lucky person that gets to take the big one.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. I found it in the shape of the rock. It was a perfectly round piece of granite. It's been weathered over millions of years, and it was the perfect shape to put a happy face on. And I did it in honor of the movie Forrest Gump, where he's running, and he has the guy come by and he straps a T-shirt and uses it on his face, and it looks like a smiley face. That guy went on to make millions of dollars, according to the movie. And so that was my contribution to getting our passengers to have a nice day.
And I'd like to say thank you to our Kindness Takes Flight team. They're from different departments throughout the airport. They surprise people in the airport with random acts of kindness, and today it was Trustee Carey's turn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kindness Takes Flight.
Have a nice day.
Okay, I also have the Employee of the Quarter Recognition Award. So I'm going to come down here and stand next to Mario Garcia, who is our winner for the Q3 Employee of the Quarter. Mario started working at the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority at the Reno Stead Airport in March 2014 as a Stead Technician 1. Mario has progressed in his career with the RTA to the level of Stead Technician 3. So this award stems from Mario's versatility. On Saturday, August 21st, 2020, Mario was the senior person on duty at the Stead Airport and showcased his versatility by handling 2 non-routine issues with no supervisory guidance or assistance as his manager was on vacation. First, Mario tracked down an overdue aircraft. The pilot failed to notify the tower that he landed safely and then stored the airplane in a shared hangar his name was not attached to. Mario initiated a ramp search and a record search. But finally, Mario made phone calls until he was eventually able to locate the aircraft and the pilot. The entire process took about 4 hours. Mario carried this out on his own initiative, which is a testament to his training and resourcefulness. Later that same day, after he had punched out and gone home for the day, Mario got a call that some kids were riding dirt bikes on the airfield and had gotten locked out in the perimeter of the Stead Airport. Typically, at Stead, the gates are open during the day and locked at night. Mario returned to the airport to let those kids out. Mario's actions show how he takes ownership of the job, demonstrates concern for our community and tenants, and shows pride in our airport. Mario's actions at Long Day are an excellent example of what versatility looks like. So on behalf of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, Mario, I want to present you the Employee of the Quarter Award, and there's a little something extra in that envelope for you. Thank you very much. Mario, you want to say anything?
Madam Chair, Trustee Board, thank you for the award. I appreciate it. But all of this training that I had was brought to fruition by my leaders and people that helped me from different teams to guide me to be more knowledgeable and successful in what to do during these situations. So thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job.
Madam Chair, that completes our awards and recognitions this month.
All right, thanks to everybody. Moving on, consent items. Do we have a motion to approve the new members of the Community Outreach Committee? Trustee Jay?
Trustee Jay here, move to accept the two new members, Eric Stovall and Tim Lucas, to the RTAA Community Outreach Program.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Art Sperber.
Okay, second by, I think it was Trustee Rose. Beat you to it by a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we're moving on to agenda item 9.1. I'll go ahead and make a disclosure. I represent United Health Services, and Prominence is under the United Health Services arm. They were one of the bids on this particular contract, so I'm going to abstain and recuse from this matter. So I'll, because I do have a financial interest. So I will let Trustee Carey take over this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is agenda item 9.1, and at this time, is there a presentation?
From Julie Sternberg, yes, she will be presenting. Julie's up.
Julie's up.
All righty. Good morning. Thank you so much. Just trying to get my screen ready. Sorry. All righty. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and Trustees. I'm Julie Sternberg, Benefits Specialist, and I am here to present this agenda item regarding the employee medical insurance. I do also have a representative present from our insurance broker, Lockton, who will be happy to assist in answering any questions you may have on this item. So the purpose of this action is to obtain Board of Trustee approval to authorize the President CEO to execute a contract with Hometown Health for Reno Tahoe Airport Authority employee medical coverage in the amount of $2,966,946 for calendar year 2021. And also to fund employee health savings accounts in the amount of $33,000 also for calendar year 2021. This action is in support of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Strategic Priority Number 7, which is People, as adopted in the fiscal year 2019-2023 Comprehensive Strategic Plan. The RTAA's medical insurance coverage is currently fully insured through Hometown Health Plan, and it includes 2 hybrid PPO plan options that utilize both deductibles and copays. And then we also have a high deductible PPO plan that is paired with a health savings account. In October of 2018, the Board of Trustees approved extending the medical insurance contract with Hometown Health Plan for an additional 2 years. So on December 31st, 2020, this contract will be ending. The Airport Authority's the Airport Authority's group health insurance broker of record, Lockton Companies, placed the coverages out to bid in this August. And upon completion of that bid process, Lockton presented the results to the RTAA's insurance committee. And the insurance committee is a working group that's been negotiated into the collective bargaining agreements for both the Teamsters Union and the Airport Authority Police Officers Protective Association. And that's because insurance benefits are mandatory subjects of bargaining under NRS 288. And the insurance committee is also comprised of individuals that represent the civil service plan and management guidelines groups. So the committee did review all of the results of the bids. We had lots of great conversation around those bids. And then ultimately we voted and made a unanimous recommendation to the President CEO. And the insurance committee recommendations were fully accepted. And that is what is being presented here today. Lockton did receive 5 bid results, and these are also indicated on page 2 of your board memo. One result was deemed non-responsive as the carrier didn't provide comparable plans. And although the Airport Authority would certainly have considered multi-year quotes, all of the carriers only provided 1-year contract quotes. In reviewing the quotes, the insurance committee considered the premium quote competitiveness. We also talked about the satisfaction levels with the current carrier. And we also talked a lot about employee-provider disruption issues if a new carrier was selected. Given all of these considerations, the insurance committee recommended continuing medical coverage with Hometown Health Plan. A little bit of background on Hometown Health Plan. They were established in 1998, and they are the insurance division of the Renown Health, and they are Northern Nevada's largest and only locally owned not-for-profit insurance company. They provide a wide range of medical coverage and great customer service. The other part of this board agenda item is about the HSA contribution. And as I previously mentioned, one of the current medical coverage options is a high deductible PPO plan. And basically the idea of this plan is it encourages members to engage in consumerism. And that's because they need to pay 100% of the cost until they reach the annual deductible. And that amount is $3,000 for an individual or $6,000 for a full family. So to help pay for these out-of-pocket expenses, the plan is paired with a tax-advantaged health savings account. And given the lower premium rates on this plan, the RTA would like to continue to offer a financial incentive to those employees that choose this plan by again funding a portion of the premium differential into the employee's HSA account. And these are the amounts that we do currently fund. And those include, if an employee chooses employee only, it would be $750. Employee and spouse coverage or employee and child coverage would be $1,000. And employee and family coverage would be $1,250. This next slide, which is also on page 3 of your board memo, summarizes the calendar year 2021 expenses at $2,999,946. And this represents no increase over our current 2020 costs and is well below the amount that was budgeted in the 2021 budget, which was $3,214,600. I do want to point out that a portion of these costs, approximately $232,800, is paid for by employee contributions into the plan. So in summary, it is hereby recommended that the board adopt the following motion. It's hereby moved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the President CEO to execute a one-year contract with Hometown Health Plan for RTAA employee medical insurance coverage in the amount of $2,966,946 for calendar year 2021, and fund employee health savings accounts in the amount of $33,000 also for calendar year 2021. This concludes my presentation. At this time, Lockton or I would like to address any questions you may have. I can't hear anything. Is that my fault?
Julie, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. We saw this in the Finance Committee meeting, all of us except Trustee Farahi and Trustee Sferraza, and we got our questions answered at that time. So I'm happy to make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. I understand that maybe my call for a motion was not heard by everyone. I'll go ahead and just redo it. I'll invite a motion for approval at this time. Jennifer?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Jennifer, you're actually firsting the motion, so you're willing to do that?
Sure, of course.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Richard J., second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion will carry. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 9.2, which is an authorization to execute professional services agreement for our state lobbyists with the Griffin Company. Does the board want a presentation on this?
I think most of us saw it on Tuesday, so.
We saw it at finance.
If anybody.
Okay, so if we want to go straight to motion, I'm okay with that too.
Richard J. moved to accept the proposal as presented.
Trustee Giannoli, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Trustee Jay and a second by Trustee Giannoli. Discussion, just under discussion, want to thank Trustee Giannoli. I know she was heading up finding us a lobbyist for this session. I'm very pleased with the selection that we're about to make. I'm excited to have the Griffin group on board. I don't know if they're listening in and want to say anything, so I'll open it up to public comment before we approve the motion. Sorry, Ann. Forgot to ask. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And hi, everyone. This is Chelsea Capurro. I was muted, but one of the partners in the Griffin Company. Thank you so much for this. We're very excited to be representing you guys and here to answer any questions should you have any. But we're looking forward to working with you guys.
All right. Thanks, Chelsea. We're looking forward to you representing us down in Carson, keeping things straight down there.
We'll do our best.
All right, moving along, item number 9.3. This is authorization for the President CEO to execute the award of contract for one fire engine type 1 structure in the amount of $172,500. I don't know if the board wants presentation on this or not.
Again, we got a great presentation on Tuesday at the finance, and I was very impressed. I asked some questions, and I was very pleased with the response I got. So unless somebody wants it, I wouldn't have any problem on my end.
Yeah, we had a lot of good conversations at the subcommittee meeting, so, there's a couple of you that would haven't heard it. but-
Sorry, Trustee Gianoli, having a hard time hearing you a little bit.
Sorry, take my mask off. Yeah, we heard a lot of good comments at the subcommittee meeting, and so unless those of you who weren't there want to hear it, I'm good with it.
Just a comment, I actually want to thank the board. We heard a lot of feedback from our firefighters, our public safety personnel on this structure engine. Took us a while to get there, but I'm so excited to move forward on this today, and I think it shows the commitment by the Board of Trustees to public safety. So with that in mind, just take a motion. Trustee Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to approve this item as presented.
So moved.
So we have a motion by Trustee Carey. I'm not sure who made the second.
Trustee Gianoli.
Trustee Gianoli. Do we have any public comment?
If I could, I would just like to thank you, the board, for this. This is very big for our department. This is very good for the services that we're going to be able to provide. And it's going to be a short-term fix for a long-term problem that we've had. This has been a very long process, and again, it is very important to the department, all of our members, not only for our organization, but for our community partners as well. So I want to thank you.
And Chief Tonkin, I heard you're down in Vegas getting this engine. Do we have it yet?
Say again, ma'am?
I said, I heard you're down in Vegas getting this engine. Do we have it yet?
They drove it home.
We were there 2 days ago, myself, a committee member, and also a member from vehicle maintenance looking at it, and Fire Trucks Unlimited is a fantastic group. They do fantastic work. Not only do we get a tour of their facilities for any needs that we would possibly ever need to be met, but we are extremely excited, and we're hoping that we'll be able to have the apparatus here in about 4 weeks.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
4 weeks.
Great.
Do they drive it up here just quickly?
So they're not going to drive it because they'll put more additional miles on it, but it will be delivered to us.
Okay, but just curious. Thank you.
We told them we'd be willing to drive it back.
Yeah, thank you. Fire engine lights on and siren and everything.
How quickly would you get back, right? All right. So, any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving right along, item number 9.5, which is another big priority. Finally, the adoption of a uniform fire code. I'm just in the, I don't know if we need a presentation on this, but I did want Ann maybe to chime in here, because during agenda review, this uniform fire code, all the other fire agencies in Northern Nevada have adopted this code. So now we're getting on board, and the code is amended periodically or things are added to it. My understanding is, Ann, that we would just be coming into compliance with that code when it's automatically amended, that it wouldn't have to come to this board for approval. So
that's correct, Madam Chair. That's why it's phrased the way it is.
Okay, great. And thank you, Ann, for structuring the adoption of the code this way. So does the board want to hear a presentation on this? Sounds like you guys aren't into presentations today. You're just waiting for the Conrack, aren't you? All right. So do we have a motion on the fire code?
Trustee
So moved.
Jones, move to approve.
Second.
Trustee Gianoli, we have a motion to approve the International Fire Code. And do we have a second?
Second from Trustee Rose.
Second from Trustee Rose. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Item number 9.6, which is Randy, sending it to you. Update on the budget for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. And before we get started, Randy, I did see news that and I don't know how that affects us, that the specific stimulus for the airline industry that Congress was looking at has now been scrapped. Are you hearing anything on that?
Yeah, I've been following the news as well. I'll touch on those points in a moment, if you will. Good morning, Chair Ferraza, members of the board, CEO Griffin. This is Randy Carlton, the CFO, with your budget update for the month of August. I will provide a high-level overview of the operating budget results for the month of August, our second month of the fiscal year. If you're interested in more detail, of course, there is the detailed operating statement in your packet, or we do have some time at the end of my comments for questions and discussion. This is agendaed as a action to be determined, although staff does not have any action that we're recommending on the budget at this point in time. When we take a look at August, a couple things. Our key metric in our business model, of course, is passenger traffic and enplanements, departing passengers from R&O. We had 93,015 enplaned passengers during the month of August. That's 60% above our forecast. I want to put that into some context, of course, of where we were last year. Pre-COVID, we're still way off from our historical levels. Last year, we were at 211,958 for the month of August. That's about 56% down year over year. Operating revenues, we have some encouraging news here that our operating revenues have exceeded our operating expenses for the month of August. So we do have a positive cash flow of about 242,000. When we look closer at our operating revenues year to date for the months of July and August, they total 6.8 million. That's performing ahead of schedule, above budget by about 19%. Looking more closely at our operating revenues, we have two large categories, the airline revenues, which are comprised of the landing fees and the terminal rents paid by airlines. That category is performing slightly above budget by 7%. The non-airline revenues, those are our non-aeronautical sources of income, primarily from rental cars and from our parking operations and food and merchandise. That category is performing ahead of schedule, above budget by about 26%. Another point in context to remember is that our revenues in the post-COVID era we're 35% down year over year in our operating revenues. Operating expenses, we're performing below budget through our cost containment measures. We are now below budget by 12%. Our spending is down year over year by 3% compared to last year. Furloughs have started, which require employees in the management CSP group to take 1 day off per month for the next 9 months. That day off is unpaid, and that is generating savings in our budget that we believe will be necessary to offset revenues that may decline as we look to the fall and winter months. We last left this discussion with furloughs that we would be approaching the collective bargaining groups, police, fire, and Teamsters. We have done that. In the collective bargaining environment that we're in, RCAA cannot simply take a unilateral action to force furloughs. So this is something that we have to discuss, meet and confer, and present to them and receive cooperation on it. At this point, the answer from the 3 bargaining groups is a no. We do not have any participation from the bargaining units at this time. It's not a closed discussion. We're always open to continuing that dialogue and hearing from the collective bargaining groups. At this point, there is nothing I can bring forward to the board in terms of how those bargaining units are going to contribute. Budget watch items, our initial fall and winter outlook anticipated that COVID would burn out over the summer and that we would be climbing into a recovery mode in the fall and winter. That outlook, as we all know, hasn't materialized. There's just as much uncertainty today in terms of predicting a return to pre-COVID levels as there was when the pandemic started. It also remains unclear just how the airline industry is going to work through the challenges of returning to a for-profit model in the absence of any federal stimulus relief. And as Chair Ferraza asked about at the beginning of my comments, you know, there are talks. They've been on, they've been off, they've been on, they've been off. According to the news this morning, they're back on. So we will be following that closely and keeping our fingers crossed. There is an interest to support the airline industry and also the related businesses in the form of concessionaires and other businesses that operate in and around airports. A couple of things that I'll note about the fall and winter outlook. A COVID vaccine could be a major game changer, and the general outlook is that a vaccine will be available in a matter of months. The timing of how that will be deployed, how that will be received by the public, and if it will have any impact on traveler behavior is yet to be seen. So we don't know the answer to how the vaccine will play into the decision by the and traveling to see family and begin their normal travel behaviors. Holiday travel and ski season is something that we're focused on. We're looking at hopefully that we'll have a strong snowpack, that the ski season will generate travel demand for the Reno Tahoe area. When we look at our reserves, our days cash on hand, we're holding steady. We do have CARES Act that we have allocated in the budget to the tune of about $12.8 million in our current year budget, and that's helping to buoy our reserves so we're not having to deplete them. A topic that has been brought up and staff has been asked to take a closer look at is overtime usage. I do have a couple of slides here comparing actual overtime to the budget and actual overtime to overtime from last year. For the month of August, the burn rate for the fire department of about 28,000 hasn't changed from what we saw in July. And since our last discussion, I can update the board that the CEO, the VP of HR, the fire chief, the senior internal auditor, we have met on a couple of occasions now and discussed this matter. We've reviewed data, discussed some options. The fire chief has some ideas that he's brought forward that we're considering. What we know, there's a couple of factors when we talk about overtime in the fire department, is that the schedule plays into one of the reasons why there's overtime. The fire department schedules 6 firefighters per 24-hour shift, and for whatever reason, when that number falls below 6, or excuse me, below 5, the department's procedure is to call back firefighters, and that's when overtime is used. Whatever number that may be, it could be 1 firefighter, it could be 2, but whatever it takes to get to 5 firefighters as a minimum staffing, those firefighters that are called back are on overtime. We know the reason why the staffing level falls below 5. Those reasons include someone calls in sick, someone is injured and working in a light duty capacity, someone's off-site for training or on vacation. Someone working on light duty, we cannot count as a part of the 5 minimum level of staffing. When we look at the data for July and August, The most significant of these reasons that I've just listed is sick leave and light duty. There were over 1,000 hours of sick leave and light duty in the months of July and August. So those were the two most significant reasons why overtime was generated by the fire department. And I'll end on this comment that we're continuing to examine this situation, discussing options. The CEO is leaning into this, and we are looking at what we can do from a management perspective to contain overtime. Our belief is that overtime should only be used as a last resort and when needed to provide the essential staffing for public safety. So those are my prepared comments, Chair. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks for the presentation, Randy. On the overtime issue, do we have the total number of what we're over budget in that department? If you put back the screen, because I mean, it's quite the jump. So you start adding that together. Where are we in the budget for the year?
Well, for the year,
actual dollar amount
yeah,
over budget.
It's about 30,000 over budget
For the year?
Through August.
Okay, so that's just July and August?
Yes.
I mean, it's staff, and I know you guys are working your tails off here, but it just comes to the point of maybe we need to hire an additional fireman. I mean, you start looking at the overtime costs and burnout rate of our public safety personnel compared to, I'd be curious to know what those amounts were last fiscal year. When you look at overtime compared to an actual body, so I don't know if staff is starting to do that analysis, but I think we've got to get a handle on this overtime. It's a big issue. And then just a question for Darren, on the furloughs and our issues with our collective bargaining agreements, understanding that I think very challenging to do furloughs with our public safety personnel, police and fire in particular. I mean, they're essential services, obviously, and we have other essential that it's not possible to do a furlough. Have we been in discussions with the units on different types of give backs that would be equal to potentially a furlough?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Darren Griffith for the record. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this and round out Randy's comments a little bit. That's a really good summation of where we're at right now, and I wanted to add just a little bit of my perspective. We had very good conversations with all three collective bargaining groups, and in particular, Teamsters had a bunch of additional questions that we answered, additional data that we provided. The Police Officers Protective Association offered us some other suggestions in lieu of their participation in a furlough program. We are considering those suggestions, one of them around a vacant position, which would give us the equivalent savings. And so for each of these groups, we know what the number is. If they had said, yes, we'll participate, we know what the budget savings number is on a monthly basis. And so what we're looking at is to achieve that equivalent savings through a different measure, which most likely will be by freezing additional positions that are being vacated right now but are fully funded in the budget. And that, on a monthly basis, allows us to achieve equivalent savings so that it's not just part of the organization that's doing furlough days and other parts of the organization are not participating. With fire, we've asked for their assistance in this overtime issue. They understand it as well as anybody does and how it's being used, how we can improve our utilization, our oversight of it. And I feel like based on a number of different tactics that we've developed, we're going to make immediate improvement in the overtime utilization and get not only back on budget, but under budget, hopefully here soon. September will look a lot like the two charts we just looked at for July and August. We already know that, but I'm hopeful that this month we start turning the corner and you'll start to see better charts on that in a couple months. I also want to add a little bit more context that at the front end of his presentation, Randy's financial metrics look better than what we expected to see right now. And if you're sitting in the union perspective and the CEO is sitting there telling you, I need your help, and you're looking at our numbers, you're like, you don't need the help, you're doing better than you expected. I understand their perspective on this. And from the leadership perspective, we have to look forward right now, not backwards, and that we need to look into the winter. What do we think we're going to be doing from a passenger perspective? How are our revenues going to be? We don't expect it to continue the way it has the first 2 months of the fiscal year. If it does, that will be fantastic, that we are doing better than we expected to do. And like we talked about last month, we can make an adjustment on the furlough program if we deem that it's not going to be necessary as we get further into the fiscal year. We can unfreeze positions if we deem we don't need those savings from the frontline work groups. So we'll have management options available to us as we get a better sense of how far off are we going to fall on revenues through the fall into the winter, or are we going to do better than expected? The reality of it is nobody knows, and we're just trying to preserve management flexibility. So no hard feelings, if you will. In the discussions with the representative groups, they're listening. They've said we'll continue to listen, but they need to see, I think, a little bit more of a dire need, and I hope we don't get to that point. So I'll stop my comments there, Madam Chair. Do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, just quickly, and I'll turn it over to the floor because, and I think I sent you this, Darren. I mean, and I don't know, Randy, I just got the update 15 minutes ago that they are not going forward with the airline stimulus. So I don't know if that's back off again, but that is important, obviously, to our operations here at the airport. But Southwest, all the other airlines now are asking, and I'm not sure how much our collective bargaining units know this. They're asking for pay cuts and furloughs. Our airlines are asking their employees, and they're the ones that make our airport go. So again, I'm just pleading, I guess, from the chair's position is everyone working together on this. I get, they see the numbers. I hear you, Mr. CEO. It's just, we are in a position, I don't want to be in a position where we have to go to the last resort, which is layoffs. And our airline partners are a huge part of, what keeps our airport going. And when they're doing furloughs and pay cuts, I just think we've got to be mindful of that. So I don't know if that information's been presented to our groups, what's going on in the airline industry, but I think that's an important component of our budget. So that being said, do we have other questions from the board members at this time?
Yeah, just thank you, Darren, for that update there. I'm really concerned because, if we're roughly 30,000, 2 months into those, just annualize that, that's almost $200,000 for the year there. And the question is, how much would it cost us for an additional firefighter? And would that be less than the $200,000? But listening to Darren here, if we can achieve that, because, looking at that chart, and everybody here is just, doing everything we can to cut where we can. I mean, just $200,000, and it could be more because as we start to get busier, that number could go up. I'm really concerned here because that just, you look at this year versus the previous years, it's just screaming out there. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to everybody here, employees, airlines, staff, just everybody. So I'm concerned.
Madam Chair, if I may, excellent point, Trustee Jay, and that chart is not sustainable. We cannot keep putting that in front of you every month and saying this is how we're doing. We have to turn that around. The fire department as a whole has a budget, and they need to be on budget. There is no room in the rest of the budget to absorb these sort of overages from a single department. As this board knows, we adopted a very stringent budget earlier this summer, and there's no slack in the system there. So Fire Chief understands that. We're working as a team to help identify how we get them back on budget. It starts with overtime, but it doesn't end there. There's other levers that can be pulled so that their total number is in line with what we said their budget was going to be. The bar is, it can't be moved because we're not doing furlough days so that we can afford fire department overtime. So, and I guess to address your question, excuse me, we're looking at everything. And if we feel like the overtime can't be turned around and we needed to add a body, we would certainly consider that as well. At the end of the day, we're trying to to be on budget, period.
Great, thank you very much, I appreciate that. I feel very confident with your leadership there.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that. I appreciate the mechanism you're pulling here, and I completely agree that you have to go into this the way we are, because you don't want to leave a few months and try and deal with it. You can always ease up, but you can't put the hammer down at the end and expect to get where you need to get to. So I appreciate this. These are difficult times, and I appreciate those that have stepped up and are willing to help out in the cause.
Me too. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? We do have public comment, so I need some help here. I think Leroy.
Let me find them.
Give us 1 second so we can get you on.
What's going on?
Okay. Be able to speak now?
Hello?
Hi, Leroy. You're on.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to set up the camera, but if you guys can hear me, that works as well.
We can hear you. I think, can you guys all hear Leroy?
Sure.
Great.
Hi, so first off, I want to say good morning to everybody. Last we spoke, I was the vice president of APOPA, and since that time, I have been moved upward towards the president of APOPA. So in regard to the furloughs, as CEO Griffin explained, he did meet with us, and we did take it to a vote. And as he stated, it was a no. We did offer some options. My members wanted me to kind of share some of those options with you, not in great detail, but I would at a later date. Obviously only get 3 minutes. One of those options was to freeze the open spot, which we wouldn't really rather do because of the fact that we're already operating at minimum staffing. And during a public safety committee meeting that we all had that was ran by Trustee Carey, that was one of the issues. We had manning issues. So we were willing to give up that position, which would be roughly about $107,000 between pay and benefits, which would be more than the $61,000 they were asking for furloughs. So Griffin said he would look into that. We also suggested buying out our topped out most, senior officer, and then also hire somebody in his place, in addition to freezing a spot, maybe at a step 4, which would have savings of over 3 years. And then also suggested doing like a hybrid position for the vice president of public safety, which would be the chief of operation of public safety now, I think the new title is, and having all the leaders in public safety within the RTAA take bits and pieces of the VP position until further notice to help save some savings. So those are some of the options that we offer that Griffin said he will look into. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. We understand that everything is going kind of haywire nowadays, but we want to let you know that we are supportive of the RTAA, and Faraza, we want to thank you for understanding the importance of us as first responders and everybody else. So thank you guys so much.
And thank you, Leroy. We appreciate it, and we hope to continue the open dialogue. And I know Darren continue those discussions, and we would appreciate, I think, any help that you can, that your members can help getting us through these difficult times. So appreciate you calling in and suggesting some options. And I don't know, Darren, if you wanted to respond to anything, I know you're looking at everything right now.
That's correct, Chair Safraza, and I'm completely aligned with Leroy. Those were exactly our conversations. We appreciate when our partners bring ideas to the table. It helps us, and like we talked about, I think the open position is probably the path of least resistance that we take on a month-by-month basis, and if things turn for the better here, we have the ability to move forward and fill some jobs for sure. So thank you.
All right, well, you're welcome. Thank you guys for listening, and like I said, we understand what's going on, and we appreciate you guys' support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
And I think we have, Lori, do we have another person? I think Robert Hunsinger, who wished to speak.
He's on the Conrack. He's going to speak on the Conrack issue.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on the budget at this time from either the public or the board? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Randy and staff, for all your hard work getting us through these challenging times. Just want to say appreciate it very much. And we'll move on to 10.1. Any other issues to update us on, Darren, with public safety? I know you hit on some of it at the beginning of the agenda. So I didn't know if you had anything else to add.
I do, Chair Safraza, thank you very much. I've got just a couple of bullet points to go through to report on some progress, but before I do that, I'm pleased to report that next week I will be submitting on behalf of the Reno Tahoe International Airport an update to our airport emergency plan to the FAA, our airport district office in Phoenix. They will go through that plan and basically sign each page and endorse it for us after they review it all. This is a document that is around 5 years old and needed an update. And I want to give the leader of that effort, Police Captain Mark Jongsma, just a chance to talk to you a little bit about the effort. His leadership here in the update of the airport emergency plan was very much appreciated. It takes somebody willing to really get into the weeds of all of these different items and lead the update effort. And I'll let him talk about the collaborative process that was cross-divisional. Captain Jongsma, are you with us?
I am, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Griffin, trustees, and Madam Chairwoman, it's a delight to be with you, to be able to give you a little bit of an update. The airport emergency plan revision project has been with me now for close to a year. It was a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of stakeholder input. I'm not sure if leader is the right word for it. I thought last night I felt more like the little guy in Cinderella that went around holding the shoe, trying to see if it would fit, and got a lot of feedback from a lot of people in that process of trying to see how we could make a good fit for everybody here at the airport. It was a learning experience. I told Darren, and I learned a lot from it. A lot of growth opportunities came out of it, a lot of chances to network with our employees, stakeholders out in the community. We did include Reno Police Department, Reno Fire Department, Washoe County in the process, the Emergency Management Director from Washoe County specifically. So we got a lot of great feedback. After a while, it got to be where people were handing in revisions about other people's revisions, and that got a little sordid after a while. But ultimately, we were prepared to submit it back in July. There was some delays due to COVID. And then once we did a submission, we chose to do an informal submission with our FAA inspector. After realizing that it was an entire rewrite, a few weeks later in August, he came back and said that his supervisor had advised him not to do a walkthrough with me, but to ask for a formal submission. And if there was any needed edits, he would do that as he moved through it page by page with a formal submission. And the formal submission is simply to get a signature from the CEO recommending that it be certified by the FAA. So we're just stepping forward with that. Since Darren had just joined us, he got the final review on the document. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been making some final edits to include revising information in the document with regard to the reorganization of the management team, a number of titles, and as a couple of concepts as well regarding activation of some of our emergency resources. It's nothing, it's pretty much 99% done at this point. And once I do a final meeting with our airport duty managers on Monday to get some final input from them, I'll be submitting it to the CEO for his signature.
Thank you, Captain Jongsma. I do appreciate his leadership on this. I did go through the plan. It's an excellent plan. It reflects the subject matter expertise of all of our different first responder groups, as well as our dispatch. It covers a lot of different scenarios that airports face. It's a better version than the 2015-2016 version, so I enjoyed going through it. Add a little bit of my subject matter expertise to it, and I look forward to submitting that to the FAA next week. So thank you, Captain Jongsma, for that report. Okay, you can go to my slide now.
Aaron, just one question. I want to thank the captain very, very much and everything you're doing on the plan. This was another, I know I'm speaking a lot here, but it was another issue of that this plan needed to be updated. And I probably would like a little more information on the dispatch, but just wanted to thank the captain. I know there's a lot of negativity out there right now regarding law enforcement and other issues. And I just want to say thank you to all the men in blue and all the things you guys are doing here at the airport. We really appreciate it. And if you could just touch on the dispatching issue, because I know we had some challenges there and that was important to the board. I didn't know if you wanted to add your thoughts on that, but I certainly would like to hear them.
With your permission, Darren?
Please.
We're definitely in a better place. I have to say that when Darren finished his revision, he also included Brent Finster, our new air communication manager, and Brent was able to lend his vast experience of more than 40 years in public safety to this process. And so we did a complete rewrite of the communications section just in the last couple weeks to update things, to kind of look at our strategic vision going forward. And we've met several times now as an Office of Public Safety working group. And I can promise you that communications is front and center in all those conversations and discussions. I appreciate both Brent and Mike Brown. The input they've been able to give over the last few months has really kind of helped crystallize for us, I think, a way forward with some of the problems we've had in the past with communications. And I can assure you too that those discussions include partnering much more with with the city and the county and being more integrated in our resources and how we respond to major incidents. So I think it's going to be, and Darren can tell you maybe better on a timeline, but it won't be weeks. It's probably going to take months or longer to sort out all of the issues, but we're definitely on the right trajectory at this point.
Thank you for that update. And I know, thank you for working on that too, the coordination between all the departments and the other agencies within our region. And I want to stand corrected. I want to thank all the men and women of the Reno Tahoe Police Department. So thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there
Thank you, Captain Johnson.
any other questions on this item? All right, Darren, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, I'll be quick, just a few more points to update the board on our public safety efforts. So next slide, please, Marty. I did not get to provide this report last month because we were cut short for the reasons we talked about, but I was going to report out that I do have a contract in place now with Mike Brown to work with me to resolve the issues in his report and just help advance our public safety efforts across the board. Mike is already proved instrumental in helping us with the dispatch issue. He was instrumental in the fire code that you adopted a little while ago, helping us get pointed in the right direction there. So he is already paying dividends. It's much appreciated, his continued work with Chief Tongate. So it's great to have Mike on board. One of the things we did at the end of August was reconvene the Operations and Public Safety Working Group to identify and resolve operational issues. That is a key group of leaders from all the public safety areas. We're meeting every 2 weeks. We're working through the interoperability issues that have been talked about for a number of months. As Captain Jongsma relayed, we're making great progress on a bunch of different areas, whether it's about radios or programming upgrades to radios, software utilization, how we get more out of software investments we've already made, improving our incident messaging protocols. Mike Brown is working with Brent on the establishment of really important AirCom performance standards. Brent is doing a phenomenal job already in really outlining the path for us to take our dispatching to the next level. And as Captain Jongsma said, that's not weeks, that's at least months, But first, we have to have a plan, and you have to have a path. And that is becoming very clear, and I'll look forward to talking to the board more about that in the near future as to what that will look like and how we will get there. And really, can I, Marty, get the next slide, please? It's also goal writing season. This is something that is really important to me as a leader, is establishing performance goals across the organization. That's something this organization has done. They will find I'm more of a stickler on goals being written and goals being measured, and ultimately that's how we measure our success, and a deadline for goal writing is just that. It's a deadline for goal writing, and we utilize our software system to make sure that we have that in place. And so we're establishing more goals, more detailed goals in the public safety space, and that is also exciting to me. So, Madam Chair, that really completes my report. I'm continuing my outreach to all the public safety groups and honestly all employees throughout the organization, trying to get out to the front lines. I've met with all 3 fire shifts, spent time with police leadership and the sergeants, and this next couple weeks we'll be out visiting with all our maintenance teams at all hours of the day and night, just letting them know that I appreciate what they're doing and giving them a chance to tell me what I can do to support them. That completes my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Darren, I just want to say thank you. Make no mistake about it, what a difference a CEO makes. And for you, just to hit the ground running on this public safety issue, I can't express my gratitude and thankfulness. You really, leadership at the top matters, and I'm just really appreciative of the quick time frame, really, that things are turning around here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Trustee Farahi?
The scratchy amen.
I know, man. Now we're on to the Conrack update, item 10.2. Darren?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So here to give you an update on where we're at with the Conrack project, working with Conrack Solutions and the broad team of stakeholders, is Brad Erger, who is on the front lines of this. And Brad will walk you through a status update. And then Tina Iftiker is here as well, and we will all take any questions that you have and talk about the path forward.
Gary Probert and Chris Cobb, who are instrumental in this project, are also on the call and will co-present with Brad.
All right, thank you. Chair Sferrazza, trustees. For the record, Brad Erger, Manager of Properties with Airport Economic Development. As Darren and Tina pointed out, I have the pleasure of presenting the update on the Consolidated Rental Car Facility, along with Chris Cobb, and also Alyssa Butterfield does have a bit of, or one of the slides as well. We do have reps from the RACs on the line, as well as Amy Barnes and Bob O'Neill from Conrack Solutions. I believe Robert had a comment that he'd like to make at some point. Maybe we can do that towards the end. Yes. There we go. All right, thought I'd start off by reminding the board where we're at in this process. If you recall, about 5 years ago, back in March, we approved, now you're good. Okay, thank you. Back about 5 years ago in March, we, the board voted to move forward with phase 2 of this project. Currently, we have several different working groups assembled, working on different aspects of the project, from drafting the ground lease, fleshing out design details, as well as updates on the pricing and schedule of the Conrack project, as well as all the enabling projects. With that, I'll hand it off to Chris with a bit of a deep dive into the design.
Good morning, Madam Chair, trustees. Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering and Construction. Pleased to be with you this morning. With last month's update getting curtailed with the events that happened, one of the things you would have seen as an update was that Conrack and their contractor Austin Commercial did go through their local construction selection process, and they had picked out Q&D to be a part of their team. A great local contractor with a lot of experience in and around airports. Additionally, their design team, PGAL, has assembled a lot of local design partners to be on their team that have a lot of body of knowledge in our area, and here again with the R&O as an airport. We continue to work through design issues and site considerations. We've had some very positive, I think, meetings with the group, not only from Conrack and PGAL, as well as Austin Commercial and Q&D, but our own stakeholders within our different groups, really diving into and trying to work through best scenarios, how to make this work and see something operational that we can make successful. Additionally, as we work through these, as the concourse comes online, taking in consideration anything that may happen in the future with the concourse program. If you go to the next slide, please. So right now, this is just still not finalized, but this is where we are today. We had a lot of fruitful, good discussions around the Gate 155, how to make that operational, how to look at fueling options to get that and use that area there, as well as emergency accesses. Really doing deep dive with a couple trustees participating and looking at ramp systems and how Conrack works and what is the most feasible operation for that. Working through the helix issues. We still continue to work with flow of traffic around there, pedestrian crossing, and several other items. But with that said, the team from Conrack and I believe our stakeholders, the intent is to end with schematic design near the end of this month. With that, once that gets turned in, then both parties will start really doing a deep dive and review and comments back and forth before we come to you in the future working group where we can present this to you as a full schematic design. If there's any questions, or we can move on with Ms. Butterfield, I believe has NEPA next.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, just a quick one. I don't know if we're locked in now at this point, but are the helixes kind of official and final, or do we think there's really some room to avoid them if at all possible?
Trustee Ferrari, we spent a lot of time working through this with Trustee Carey and Trustee Sperber. We had a very positive meeting with PGL and Conrack, looking at the different solutions and actually physically how a rack works in their flow of traffic. And it's much different than a typical parking garage. With that, the best flow of traffic that we found, and once we went through the concerns and issues that were brought up by Trustee Carey and Sperber and many of you, we did see that the helix was the best route to go, and it was having the least impact on space.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just wanted to, and I know someone explained it prior, and just wanted to kick the tires one more time, as I know a lot of people generally don't like them, but presumably we'll have the experts lay out exactly what the width of that helix should be, so at least it's very smooth flowing and easy to traverse.
And it will be, sir. And when we, I believe, come to you at the workshop, we can show you how it'll function and how it'll function safely.
This is Art. Can I speak?
Absolutely. Trustee
I'm not totally sold on not putting those helix in. I'm really not sold on that item. Obviously, we're trying to push something in an area that maybe it's not the correct location, and because there's not enough space in there, we're pushing to put a product that is marginal. So so yes, we all discussed it and everything and saw the problems they had, but maybe the whole problem is the whole project where it is, to be honest, at that point. And I'm hoping to get some more information in this, but I'm not totally sold on that item.
Trustee Sperber?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Call coming through, so I do want to follow up on that too, Chris. Just the location on Trustee Sperber, and I guess Farahi's question. when we did the analysis, did we look at what other airports are doing throughout the country regarding these types of facilities actually being on site rather than off site?
You know, Chair Sferraza, unfortunately, I was not here during the design and phase one and how this area of our airport was selected. And I apologize, I don't have an answer to that. Possibly Mr. Probert might be able to dive in there. And I'm sorry, Mr. Probert, if I'm throwing you under the bus there a little bit, but I know a lot of that was a selection during phase one and how we got moved into phase two.
And listen, just, I think, Chris, just to reiterate, this isn't about throwing anyone under the bus. I think this is a big project. So I think trustees do have some questions. And I know staff, you weren't here at the time, or Gary or anybody else. I just want to know some of the questions regarding what other sites were evaluated. And I don't know, Gary, if you have the answer to that question. Just going back in time a little bit, because it does seem like we're trying to cram into this site to make it work. So I don't know who.
Chair Sferraza, and that's what I meant is possibly Mr. Probert may have more information on that. That's what I putting him on the spot.
Yeah, no, I got what you meant. I was just saying, not trying to put anyone on the spot. Just wanted to get kind of go back in time and see if we had evaluated other sites, off-site areas for this facility. Gary, I don't know, Darren?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh. Hi, Gary.
Hi there. Doesn't appear that my video is working right now, but thank you. For the record, Gary Probert, Chief Infrastructure and Planning Officer. The original, when Conrack Solution was first brought on, there was, I'm sorry, I think my video is going to start. There it goes. When Conrack Solution was first brought on, there was a study done, and they looked at various sites. I can't remember how many of them there were. North of where this Conrack is now, they looked at south where the surface lot is. So they looked at 4 or 5 different sites, different sizes, going up 2, 3 stories. I think at one they had a site going up almost 5 stories because it was a smaller site. So yes, there were a lot of different sites looked at. The main thing was they wanted a walkable site. So it, or we wanted a walkable site, I should say. The rental cars, they obviously wanted something as close as possible. So it is true that there were many sites looked at, and this was the site that was kind of chosen. And then with some of the trustees' concerns with safety and stuff, the loop road was extended out beyond, instead of going underneath the new structure, the Conrack. And it seemed like at about that time, you know, things kind of were agreed to that this was the location.
And I appreciate that background, Gary. And maybe if I, to go back in time, if I can just get it sent to me, the different locations. And I'm kind of with Trustee Sperber on this one. I don't know. I may be in favor of opening this back up again and looking at that analysis, or potentially some other sites that weren't explored before. And again, we move forward with this as a board. Conceptually, this isn't about any staff. I just want to make sure that we've got, this is a big decision, and that we have all the information to make the right decision on this. So Are there any other questions from the board so far?
Chair Sferrazza, can I speak, please?
Yes, Trustee Rose.
Just going back to what Gary said, I do remember that we compared numerous sites, and there was a big push for making sure that this was walkable, that the biggest reason why people love our airport is because they can walk and grab their rental car and they don't have to take a shuttle. And there was a lot of discussion and during the master planning and as well as the board discussion afterwards, everybody was pretty in agreement that we would keep it in a very close location where it was easily accessible. And then some of the other alternate locations that we looked at, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but we might lose more parking than we were willing to give up, or there were different issues with all kinds of different locations. So, I mean, it's great if we all want to change our mind now, but just to go back to the history, we did put a lot of focus on keeping that facility as close as humanly possible. That doesn't mean that we can't change our mind now, but that was the focus that we were using at the time.
Thank you. I do see we have a public comment here on this issue from Amy. Amy, do you want to chime in here?
Hi, good to see you all. Trustees Amy Barnes from Conrack Solutions for the record. I'm happy to repackage all of the sites that were considered and send that back around so that you can see the 5 sites that were considered. I do think it, when appropriate, it'd be nice to hear from Robert Hunsinger with Enterprise or Jackie Agan with Hertz, who are both also on this call, and they can speak to the conversations about walkability and how that impacts the business for the rental car companies and therefore the revenue for the airport.
And Amy, so you guys are doing these across the country. How many of them are on site compared to off site?
You know, all of the projects that Conrack Solutions is currently working on are walkable. So even at the Newark Airport project, which is going to be walkable from their brand new Terminal 1, that was the most important thing for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and the rental car industry at that airport. Also, Hartford, Connecticut, going to be walkable as well. So that is definitely the preferred option for, I would say, all airports when it's a possibility, knowing that the space around the terminal is you know, at a premium. And I think that, you know, where we got to with this conversation was the project as it stands now allows for rental car customers, airport passengers to walk to the cars and provides additional public parking. So it's, you know, a way to maximize that space that's close to the terminal. But again, I would also, we have Jeff Weiner from PGAL on the line, and PGAL is the premier architect for Conracks around the country. So if you'd like to hear more on that topic, I would defer to Jeff.
Yeah, and just to get back though, they're walkable. You answered that part, but are they on the airport properties? The majority of the ones you're doing, so they're on the airport property.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, Trustee Jay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I get, you know, and it's good that we're always discussing, always looking at this stuff. But, you know, in the last 2 years where we've made these presentations to the COC, the users group, noise group, one of the things over the last couple of years I've changed. I've tried bringing more of the airport information and what's going on to these various committees. And I can probably say 99% of them are the people really like the idea of having it close, accessible, walkable. And the one comment I've heard that probably resonated a lot is when we were first starting this, oh my God, you're not going to make this like Vegas where I have to get in a bus and drive somewhere. People just don't like that. And I think, like I said, 99% of people just love the idea. It's walkable, it's close. I like the way we've made changes. We're really doing our due diligence to make sure we have the best site. But given those committees that I've been chairing, overwhelmingly like the idea of it being walkable. Just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other questions?
If I may, Madam Chair. I agree. I think that's how we got here. Obviously, the location I don't think is maybe negotiable anymore at this point. We did spend a lot of time on it. The proximity to the terminal and walking distance was, I think, priority number 1 after safety. My only reason for bringing up the topic for discussion again was just to make sure that we've really exhausted every effort to get rid of the helixes if possible while maintaining the location. And I understand the challenges with ramps and the additional parking that you lose with ramps. I don't know if there's a solution to go, a floor higher to allow for ramps. I assume all those ideas have been exhausted, but again, it was just throwing it out there once more to make sure we really have exhausted every opportunity, because I know none of us prefer the helix, but they're generally big concrete eyesores and remind me of bygone ages. So if the answer is in the affirmative that we've really exhausted every other opportunity, we can't take the garage any higher to get ramps or something to that effect, then it is what it is. But then please, as we go through the design process for the helixes, let's try to make them as easy to navigate as, I mean, it's kind of hard to screw up the navigation of the helix, but as wide and spacious to make a seamless travel experience and open and airy if possible. I know it's a bit down the road, but.
No, good suggestions. Thank you, Trustee Farahi. At this time, other questions or comments from the board? Okay, and do we have any comments, Conrack, at this particular juncture? Lori? Okay, all right, let's keep moving on with the presentation.
Good morning. This is Lisa Butterfield, Manager of Planning and Environmental Services. Could I just get a confirmation that you can hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Due to the complexities of the rental car facility development and the numerous enabling projects that are going to be necessary in order to clear the site for the project, a NEPA working group was established with representatives from the airport, from Conrack Solutions, from PGAL, as well as Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn was hired by Conrack Solutions to assist with the FAA environmental review process. The NEPA working group has continued to meet, but creation of the environmental review document has been delayed a little bit while we explore the option of a Section 163 exemption. Legal counsel for Conrack Solutions recommended that in lieu of presuming that the entire development requires a full FAA-directed environmental review process, that CS would prefer to propose to the FAA that the project should qualify for exemption under Section 163 of the FAA reauthorization. What that exemption allows is the project to skip a airport layout plan update, which is a federal action obligating us to go through NEPA. So the RTAA is willing to allow Conrack Solutions to proceed with this exemption effort at their own risk. The primary risk for this approach is that if the FAA rejects the exemption request, project delay is going to occur because the FAA is not going to evaluate a 163 exemption and an environmental review for the same project at the same time. And we do know that the FAA has a backlog of environmental reviews, so getting in the environmental review queue with the FAA is a pretty critical juncture. The primary reward for this approach, though, is that if the FAA grants the full exemption request, no FAA environmental review will be required. If a partial exemption is granted, then potentially it's a less onerous environmental review process. Conrack Solutions Legal Counsel has provided a detailed letter and submittal package to request the FAA approval of the exemption. RTA staff and counsel have thoroughly reviewed the submittal package and provided final comments, and the full package for the Section 163 exemption is ready for submittal to the FAA pending outcome of the next upcoming board action. So staff is ready to proceed with requesting this 163 exemption pending the results of our next board action, which I believe is scheduled for the very next rental car workshop. And that's all I have on NEPA.
For the 163, how likely is it that we get an exemption? I mean, how many times are these granted, really?
So the 163 exemption has only been allowed since the last full FAA Reauthorization Act It is a relatively new process. The FAA doesn't have formal guidelines yet on what airports are required to submit and what truly qualifies. So honestly, from staff's perspective, we're not 100% sure it's going to be successful. That being said, Conrack Solutions lawyer has created what we think is a very compelling argument. If it does, if it is granted, the benefits to this project are going to be immense in terms of savings associated with being able to avoid that environmental review process.
Any questions from the board for Lisa? Thanks for the report, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Lisa. This is an update on the status of the agreement. Ann Morgan's team has drafted a ground lease, and staff had a chance to review. Back in Ann's court right now. She's just making a few changes, and hopefully we can get that back out to the larger group, Conrack Solutions, and then off to the RACs to finalize the negotiations on that ground lease. All right, this is the slide a lot of people are waiting for, the cash flow. So this is actually a pared down version of the cash flow. I know it's a lot to look at, but you'll see that this is basically all of our expected spend up until that board action at the workshop that we have tentatively scheduled for January. Currently, we've spent just under $1 million through September here. That's highlighted in at the very bottom there. And we will have not spent more than $3.2 million once we get the 100% schematics and bring those to the board for a vote at the January workshop. Some good news on this slide. CFCs, the rental cars are actually performing a bit better than we had expected. While they're not back up to the pre-COVID levels, they are performing a bit better than in plane passengers that we use to budget the CFC collection. So as of the end of August, September 1st, we did have $11.6 million available for use in the account. We do have approximately $8 million left of phase 2 funds scheduled for this fiscal year. And then, of course, we have about $500,000 set aside for maintenance of the current QTA facility. The $2.25 million you'll see there is based on our budget forecast, so we're hoping to collect a bit higher than that. But if we don't, we'll have approximately $5.35 million left at the end of the fiscal year. And so, yeah, certainly.
Jennifer Rose just commented, I'm wondering if anybody else can see the slides. Jennifer says she's not able to see.
Who's speaking? I'm sorry, can you, it's Trustee Jay?
Yeah, I just wanted, sorry to interrupt, but Jennifer Rose, Trustee Rose just texted me saying she hasn't been able to see the slide. Oh. Has anybody else been able to see the slide?
It's okay if it's just me, but if it's everyone, that might be a problem. Chair Sferrazza, can you see the slides?
Yes.
I haven't seen a single slide through the whole meeting, but it might just be my computer, so no worries.
Okay,
it's just the way you have your view.
Yeah.
No, I can actually, it actually says up on my screen, Martin Mueller has started screen sharing, and then the whole screen sharing portion where he normally pops up is just black. It doesn't have pictures of us there or anything. I can see where it's supposed to be. It's just black. But don't worry about it, you guys. Don't stop on my account.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you.
So where do we go from here? As Chris mentioned, we expect to have the 100% schematic drawings back from Conrack Solutions, the first iteration of them at least sometime this month. There will be probably a month or so of back and forth between RTA staff, Conrack Solutions, and the RACs going through some changes to that. We're not going to bring them to you until we have them totally fleshed out. All of our issues dealt with and everything. At the proposed January board workshop, again, we won't have spent more than the $3.2 million of the budget. And we plan to review the updated project budget and schedule, all of the site utility plans, the 100% schematic drawings for both the Conrack facility as well as all of the enabling projects that we've identified. Those schematics will include elevations, floor plans, and sections of all of the above, and we'll also have the basis of design reports. The next proposed go, no-go decision, and at that board workshop, we'll ask for a go, no-go decision. Basically, we will ask the board to authorize us to move forward in this phase 2 of the project. The next scheduled workshop after that is, again, tentatively scheduled based on, at February of 2021. The funds expended to date at that point are right around $6.2 million. And then the third and final go, no-go decision point of phase 2 would be tentatively scheduled for September of the following year. And that'll complete phase 2 of the project, where we'll have the 60% design and full schedule pricing not to exceed the budget and the schedule and everything for that. And I know Robert would like to comment here if we want to do that, and then maybe go to questions if there are any.
And Jessica needs to call for public comment, and then Robert's going to do public comment.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, so any other questions? I actually have a question before we go to public comment. When's assuming this timeline, when would this facility be done?
Assuming there's no delay, I think we're looking at a end of 2024. I believe it's mid-2024 is the current timeline, assuming no delay.
And I guess just a question on that, elephant in the room question. The emerging technology that we're seeing with driverless cars and ride sharing and everything else, I mean, does staff have any concerns that, hey, we're looking at, 4 years to this facility's done? We have a facility on our hands that by that time it's outdated with the emerging technology that's going on, and technology is coming online pretty rapidly. And I know it's hard to guess or try and put things into a model, but I mean, we also were here on the financial model on this one where everything was, hey, let's just go ahead and I'm glad the board, we went through and projected some numbers in case of a downturn in the economy, which we're experiencing now. So I would like, I guess, some staff feedback on, end of 4 years, do we already have an outdated facility on our hands?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Sferaza. I do know that the phase 1 of the project did evaluate those types of technology disruptions. In the immediate term, we've actually seen a decline in people using the TNCs. They're not as apt to get into a car with a stranger. So again, we are seeing an actual increase in use of the rental cars. But the beauty about this project is the garage is built to be flexible and accommodate several different uses, whether it's public parking, which we'd be getting back. Also, we could use it as kind of a hub for the TNCs should that start to, take over the market. And then also for the rental cars should they keep trending that way.
This is Tina Instiger, if I may. That's a great question. The way this concept is set up is the financial risk is on the Conrack Solutions and their equity investors and debt. And so when they go to finance this, the market will critically evaluate that very question before we start construction. And they're not going to invest in it if there isn't some flexibility in design, as Mr. Uger mentioned. They're not going to invest in it if it's obsolete. And so I think that's a good test, and we will continue to test it and ask that question. And I think the Conrack solutions and the rental cars maybe during public comment can address it further. But it's a very valid question, and the beauty of the way we're approaching this with private financing will validate that. Otherwise, we won't get the financing to construct it.
And Tina, and I appreciate your perspective on that, but unfortunately, that's not what's happened in this community. We have had things financed, and they have sat there, convention facilities, I could name bowling facilities, I can name facility after facility that were financed that are cash strapped. And so I appreciate the perspective, but also these types of facilities, it's such a big decision. I just don't want to have an eyesore on our hands in a facility that's not utilized. And ultimately, I think for me, that I have to really get a comfort level on is it's on our property. It's on the airport's property. And let's not forget, this wasn't included in the master plan that former trustee Hall worked very hard on that came to our board. And I realize not all the board members that currently sit were on the board at the time, but we spent a lot of time on that master plan and getting that information on that master plan to plan out how we grow as an airport. So I know everyone's trying to do the right thing here, and I get the perspective. Those are a couple of my concerns that I'm just having a little bit of heartburn over. So I'm just concerned about having a facility on the airport that's, the future, and it won't be, quite frankly, our board that's talking about it. It'll be a future board that's living with it. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Chair Safraza, Darren Griffin, can I chime in here?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One, I want to emphasize we're not making any decisions today. This is really important feedback, and we appreciate hearing from all the trustees. That's why we have the staff here today updating you all. It's going to be an important decision in January, and I want to make sure we get through the schematic design and we address the design issues to the best of the team's ability as they've been identified by trustees and other stakeholders, and give you the best possible cost information, as well as continue to work with Conrack Solutions team on identifying the trends across the country, as you've asked about, is what we're doing, the direction that airports are going today. The questions around whether it's going to be an eyesore or it'll be outdated, as I think about this and compare it to my professional experience, what I try and look at it from the 30,000 foot level, which is we expect to rebound from the pandemic, and we expect to get back to those passenger levels that this airport was on track for in 2019, which is to get to 5 million annual passengers and ultimately beyond. Believe me, I look forward to talking to the board about our goals around growth as the community grows and the region grows. And as you think about how people are going to access this airport, it will continue to be cars. And what's changing is how those cars are owned and operated, and the technology in the vehicles, whether they're electric vehicles, driverless vehicles, transportation network companies, rental car vehicles, private vehicles. There is no mass transportation alternative to where people might begin to shift modes away from cars. And if we're going to be dealing with cars, then we need infrastructure to accommodate them. And we need flexible infrastructure that allows us to pivot as the market changes in 2025 or 2035, and how the utilization of vehicles evolves. it's changing rapidly right now, and airports are trying to keep up with that. But as I think about this project and look at it, you know, I want us to really do that due diligence so that we answer as many of your questions as possible. And then we're going to have a great conversation in January, reaffirming that this is the direction we want to go as an airport, that this is the right infrastructure. Regardless of how it's used 5, 10, or 20 years from now, we're still going to need to accommodate vehicles is what I look at. And how many vehicles are we going to be dealing with it when we're at 7 million annual passengers? Because we're going to get there. That's my goal. And I think when you look at the growth around the Reno-Tahoe region, we are going to get there, and we need to be ready for it. So these are fantastic questions. I challenge my staff to go back and continue working on all of them, and we'll keep the dialogue open with you and really look forward to that discussion in January.
And then just one more question, I guess, for Tina. And I don't know if this is the phase right now on the design, but one thing I did appreciate, Tina, when you came forward, was the art element to this. And I think Trustee Farahi had mentioned this too. I mean, if we do move forward with this facility, it's got to be a gateway. It's got to be done right. Cutting edge. I think art is a huge component in the gateway to our airport. So I don't know if those are being incorporated now to make sure that we have the design element. It's going to be something that's cutting edge as you're entering the airport. But I know, Tina, when you had come back and you had presented to us before, I think you put some emphasis on that. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but the design phase, I just want to hear, I guess, an update on that.
Thank you, Trustees Raza, Tina Tigger for the record. If the board chooses to proceed with this location in January, then that would be the time for us to start to look at the entry design and more aesthetics during that next phase. We are already addressing or trying to address pedestrian circulation. While that's not art, it will feed into the customer experience and all of that. But if we affirm we're going to keep this location, which is where it would impact potentially the image of our front door, then we would look at that. But until we affirm this location and moving forward, that's not going to be addressed at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the board? We do have some public comment. Help me out here, Lori. Do we have, is it Robert first?
Yes, Robert first.
Okay, great.
And you got.
Hi, Robert.
Good morning. This is Robert. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, esteemed trustees. I'm Robert Hunsinger with Enterprise Holdings, representing our brands Enterprise, Alamo, and National Car Rental. Thanks for taking the opportunity to hear me speak. I'd like to make 3 points. First, to answer the recurring question, does the rental car industry need this facility? The rental space has been undersized for many years. Today, we have 363 parking stalls to share amongst all operators. Based on the volume of the 2019 transactions, we actually needed 790 stalls to adequately handle the volume of customers seeking cars. This means that today we have only the spaces to handle 40 to 50% of 2019 transactions. Given the current transaction levels, we're already getting close, if not exceeding, the current capacity. Our analytics and that of the experts hired by RTAA and Conrack Solutions have repeatedly concluded that in order to operate efficiently, satisfy customers' needs, avoid sellouts, and maximize airport revenues, the industry needs 790 stalls today and will need 1,100 by the end of the planning horizon. This estimation anticipates a very conservative annual growth of 1.1% over the term of the master lease. We definitely need this facility and need the space we've identified. Second, as it relates to the moving forward with the planning at this time, as I've stated, we need the facility ASAP. Delaying the planning phase will only push the completion further into the future. We've already collected more CFCs than is needed to complete phase 2 today. CFCs can only be used for this purpose and therefore there's no reason to delay the use of these funds for the purpose they were intended. The RTAA will retain ownership of all work product from this effort, and even if a delay is determined to be necessary in the future, this work product can be revived once a decision to proceed is reached. We already have a planned go, no-go decision point next summer and January, with potential to delay the project design at any point between now and then. And finally, given each of these points, we see no downside to continuing the planning efforts at this time. And third, I'd simply like to express our growing concern regarding the number of projects which are being added to this development and our very real fear that we're pricing ourselves out of ever completing it. We as partners must continue to control the cost of this project in order to make it feasible. We realize that together we're uncovering and exploring all potential needs, both from the airport and the RACs. However, it's important to recognize that there is a limit to the ability of the CFC to pay for this project. And while I don't believe any party is prepared to say at this time that this part of the project is acceptable and that part is not, we are growing increasingly concerned that the project has already or will be, before we are done, too expensive, and that we cannot possibly expect the CFC to support the cost. Imposing too large of a CFC on rental car customers will result in a decline in traffic, and we as partners need to continuously balance these competing concerns. Thank you for your time.
Just a question on that. I guess just to follow up, when you refer to the added costs, can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, you know, every time we go to build a consolidated facility, there are certain things that need to be done to make that possible. And we refer to those as enabling projects. And we expect them to be present in nearly every project. But it seems that each month as we go through this design process, that the number of additional items that need to be addressed continues to grow. And my point is simply that together we need to continue to look at these and determine whether they're truly necessary to make the project possible, whether it's reasonable to assume that the project itself would pay for those enabling pieces entirely on their own, or whether they may be shared with the airport and the project. It's not any specific enabling project that brings this up. It's kind of just the general ever-growing list of projects. And our concern from my company's perspective, as we look at the CFC that can reasonably be collected in Reno, you know, whether we're going to end up when we are done designing with a project that the CFCs can't support. So together as partners, I just want to keep that in mind, and at each step along the way determine whether it's one that should really be paid entirely by the project or whether there is an alternate funding mechanism.
And again, you bring this up, I would like at least one specific, because I mean, you bring it up, so.
Well, we've got you know, a lot of different enabling projects that affect both the air side as well as the land side. We've talked about elevated walkways, air-conditioned elevated walkways, which is going to add millions to the project and require vertical circulation on both sides of the roadway. There's a number of projects. I mean, there's 50 projects listed on that spreadsheet, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I appreciate that.
If you don't mind, I'd be happy to make a comment regarding the facility that you asked earlier, and specifically whether this is future-proof. And I would just add to the conversation that in the future, in the event that autonomous vehicles become a more prevalent thing, even under that environment and that situation, there will still need to be a place where these cars can be parked and they can be serviced and they can be fueled and washed. So to Director Griffin's comments, I agree. You know, the key here is to make sure that it's flexible, and I believe that we are doing so in our design. And I think that the facilities that we're building and designing are going to be useful regardless of whether it's a rental car or an autonomous vehicle or a TNC or any other.
Okay, thank you for your input. I think we have another public comment from John. John Steiner.
would be John Steiner.
Okay.
Hello, this is John Center. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, John.
I was just making myself available with respect to the FAA and NEPA questions. I really don't need to give a specific comment. Well, I guess I will just say this. The FAA is not really allowed to do NEPA work if they don't have jurisdiction. And the FAA Reauthorization Act narrowed their jurisdiction. So all we're really doing is asking to confirm whether there's jurisdiction here or not. We're not asking for an exemption. So that's the nature of the question. And that's my comment.
Thank you. And that's, I'm glad you clarified that. So I guess the position we're taking is that they don't have jurisdiction to review this in the first place.
That's correct. We're not, Madam Chair, we're not really challenging their jurisdiction. We're just asking them to make that determination so we know where we are with respect to NEPA.
Do we have other questions by the board this time? I know it's coming back in January. We got our update. Just want to thank staff for being available and answering questions. Board members? All right, and this isn't an action item. This was just an update. Appreciate Trustee Sperber and Carrie working on the design elements of this. I know you guys have been in the weeds on this project, spending a lot of time. So thank you. We'll move on to item number 11, board comments, questions, and requests for future agenda items.
Chair Safraza, this is Lori Kolachek.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, we did have one more public comment. I'm trying to get her to unmute, but we're having trouble with that, but this is for Jackie Egan.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Jackie.
I'm just in a potentially loud environment, so I kept muting myself again, so I'm sorry for that confusion.
No problem.
I just wanted to thank the board for your continued support of this project. I won't reiterate anything that Robert said. He did a great job of outlining, the need for the project. I will answer the question about other Conracks. Salt Lake City just opened the rental car facility inside their new parking garage. So they opened a new terminal. The rental cars are inside the public parking garage with an attached QTA. So it's very similar to the Reno project. And particularly with the COVID and unknown future issues, customers are more and more wanting touchless and expressing some concern about riding buses. So I think Reno is right on track. There were some comments that are right on track as well about the customers always have wanted a walkable solution. Nobody wants to be on a bus, particularly now. And all the projects that I'm aware of are walkable on airport solutions because the customers have spoken and the airports and industry are trying to accommodate their desires.
Thank you for your input, Jackie. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lori, any other comments?
No, Chair, that's it.
Okay, I'll close that agenda item and move on to 11, board comments, questions, and reports for future agenda items. Anybody have anything they want added to a future agenda? All right, and then we'll open it up again to item 12 for public comment. All right, item 13, just the future meetings and events. And just a question for our CO, retreat, are we looking at retreat next year?
Madam Chair, Darrell Griffin here. Are you asking about a retreat for The board?
Yes.
I think traditionally those have occurred in November. Is that correct, Lori? Yeah. So that's probably something we should start working on together and get calendared if that's your desire.
Yep, because that's next month. So just came, I mean, if we have to push it back a little, that's okay too. This board's held a lot of meetings, because I know you're just trying to, you're speeding, running, sprinting. So, all right, anything else? All right, move for adjournment.
Move to adjourn, Richard J.
Hey,
Seconded.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Guys, have a great day.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
We have to take one more.